a live event, isn't it? First minute or two. Okay. Hi, Nadine. Okay, good to meet you. Well, kind of. Cool. Right. So should we get underway? Sarkis, Bridget, is that good with you?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All set to go. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining in today. We've got a few familiar faces in the list and quite a few new ones as well, which is always good. So the webinar today is going to be running through looking at why Magento stores typically lose traffic, specifically organic traffic in this instance, actually. I'm Sam. I'm the MD and founder of Blink. We're a specialist e-commerce SEO agency based in Norwich. I've been working in the e-commerce space since 2002, as mad as that may seem. I've been working specifically with Magento, not for any, it's probably since around 2014, 12, 14, I can't even remember now, but quite some time anyway. And I've got Sarkis and Bridget from ITQ Digital here as well. And ITQ Digital are a specialist development agency focusing on Magento. And we've worked together on a number of projects for quite some time now. And given all of the stuff that's going on in the world, it seemed like this is a good subject at this point. So Bridget, Sarkis, if it's okay with you, I'll just dive in and then we can take it from there.
Yeah,
thanks, Sam.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Brilliant. So essentially, is a brief summary of what we're going to be running through today. First of all, why Magento? Why are we choosing to focus on this platform? A dive into the reasons why organic traffic falls. We'll be talking a lot about category pages in this webinar today, as well as how to understand the quite large amounts of data that are kind of produced by all of this. At that point, Bridget and Sarkis will pick up to run through the specifics of, we're going to be talking a lot about category pages, but what does that mean from a development design perspective, including the overall buyer journey and why that's important at this point. And then we can come on to Q&A and any other questions at the end. So without any further ado, let's get started. So why Magento? I think this is an important question to ask, obviously. The things that we're going to be talking about at this point are appropriate for most e-commerce platforms, but there's something specific about Magento in that Magento stores have more products and more pages typically. And there's a lot more going on than, say, a Shopify store with 4 or 5 SKUs. There's a lot more data, there's a lot more kind of points of entry, but there's also a lot more stuff that can go wrong. And kind of all of this makes it harder to understand what's actually going on. So coming on to the kind of the core questions that we're going to look at today. Why does organic traffic fall? And really, it's usually one of 3 things or a combination of them. Bad data, and by that I mean tracking and analytics. If your tracking is at fault, it's quite easy to see organic traffic fall, but that doesn't necessarily mean that revenue's dropped. At the same time, demand and competition. This is something that's particularly important at the moment, especially as the market conditions over the past 12 months have been challenging, and then that's combined with a kind of post-COVID correction, as I like to describe it. And then we've got all of the other stuff that's going on in the world at the moment. It's never been easier to launch an e-commerce store. The barrier to entry has never been lower. And that means that competition can be quite fierce. And then finally, we've got an SEO problem. And funnily enough, this is probably the thing that we're going to talk about the least in terms of this particular webinar. And that's like, is there a tactical or technical thing that's wrong with your particular SEO campaign? Has something broken? And I think the kind of point that I want to make here is that it's really important to understand what combination of these issues you've got before you start making a decision about how to address it. You know, like the cartoon here is a great example. You know, it's easy to get focused on data, but if understanding that data within context is the most important thing. And that's something we're going to kind of revisit a few times here, that idea. Okay, so at this point, it's good to understand where organic revenue comes from. This is something I come back to time and time again. So a while back, we tried to validate our thinking about this subject by looking at all the projects that we've got in our data warehouse. So this is looking at 500,000 URLs broken down by page type, blog, product, or category, and then broken down to see which ones generate the most organic revenue. So from about the 500,000 URLs in our data warehouse across 40, 50 projects, about 60% of organic revenue is coming in at category page. Now this makes perfect sense, like validates what we thought in the first place, but it's really important to kind of keep this in mind here, because sometimes the things that we're going to look at are going to seem contrary to it. But as with most e-commerce businesses, not all of the data joins up in a neat way. So it's important to have this kind of context behind it. So in the example that we're going to look at, will there be a smoking gun? You know, or for most businesses, will there be a smoking gun? You know, will we see one thing where we can go, okay, that was the problem. Well, let's fix that, and everything comes back. And most of the time, the answer is no, and that's for a number of reasons to do with the data and how it's, you know, and the form that it's in and the sources that it comes from. But that doesn't mean that going through this process is, you know, that's not the whole point of doing this process. Is to find opportunities at the same time, to understand what's happening and how you can kind of pivot or adjust your strategy. So we've used our kind of custom setup here. This is a visualization of our data pipeline, the simplistic one and the actual one. So we do this, we can do this stuff a lot quicker. All of the things that we're going to talk about here are possible with standard analytics and Search Console. It just takes longer. Cool. So let's go on to the next one. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Anne from Flight So Fancy for allowing us to use some real world data here. This is a really good opportunity to, you know, it's always helpful to go through a kind of real process with something like this. And Anne's been kind enough to let us share, you know, what's been going on behind the scenes for her business. Just for some background, Flight So Fancy sell kind of chicken coops and kind of that very, I think it's all handmade, high quality product. So very, very specific, but really, really, really great business. And again, very grateful to be able to share some real world data. So in terms of that, business has seen organic sessions up a shade under 7% year on year, but revenue down 4.5%. Okay, and I would say, given the current economic climate and all of the things that are going on, being down 4.5% is not that bad in the grand scheme of things. But we've got to counter that with the rising costs of everything at the same time. So, you know, so there's a further kind of downward pressure there. And that's why it's so important to really understand what's going on. Cool. So what is happening? Again, like we spoke briefly about data, but data tracking and analytics is one of the first things we want to look at here. Bad tracking, bad data, bad decisions. It's really important not to take Google Analytics in particular at face value. I've probably looked, out of the last 8 months, I probably haven't seen any stores that I've looked at that have got tracking set up properly. And good, clean data is coming through and has been consistently. This is a big subject in itself that we can't really dive into in the kind of time we've got here. But it's always the kind of like the first point of call for something like this. I think here's here's the first example. What we're seeing here is the organic traffic over time. The gray line that's going down is for this / domain, and then you can see that the highest traffic landing page is just /. So what's happened is there's essentially a filter. It's usually a filter that causes this in GA that means that that kind of traffic is being split across two URLs. So that's like one of the first examples of the traffic of the tracking being a bit out on this project. Second thing we talked about was demand. And this is one of the things we'll go into in a bit of detail here. So how is search demand changing year on year? How's it split out for brand versus non-brand terms? Which products and categories are going to be most affected? So here's an example of a visualization, and this is using our kind of data warehouse setup. So what we've done here is stitch together all of the data from Search Console, looking at all of the keywords for a particular URL over 12 months. And then compare, because we're bringing in the keyword planner data, which has search volume, we can do a year-on-year comparison. So we can see that volume for a set of queries has declined or risen by X% year-on-year. And because we're kind of, we cluster and categorize all of these queries in the data warehouse, it's easy for us to say, look at brand terms or non-brand. In this instance, that we can say that the overall demand, like brand searches, so someone searching for Flight So Fancy or a typo or variation of that, it's gone down 15.5%. But anything else, all the non-brand stuff is actually up 4.5%. And then we compare that to overall impressions, and we can see, you know, they're pretty much flat. But really, I mean, the changing in the search demand, from this, like understanding that brand demand has gone down is one really important thing. But then it becomes a case of what is the non-brand demand doing? How can we drill into that and find out a bit more about what's actually going on? Okay, so the third point that we raised just right now is an SEO issue. So if we look at the falling organic users here by page, I think it gives us a kind of an interesting starting point here. So we can see that the biggest page that's dropped is the filtered or the kind of appended root domain. So we can kind of discount that. Next, we've got a checkout page with that kind of with that filter or appended domain adding to it. So checkout pages appearing in kind of organic users is normally down to well, it is a tracking issue. It's probably usually down to something like a payment gateway that can be fixed with a payment referral. I mean, it's going to vary quite a lot on a case-by-case basis, but we can see a few checkout pages in here that are kind of skewing it. And at the same time, this Granary 25 paint service page has only had like the number of users has gone down by 4, but it's seen a chunk in organic revenue for. That's an additional product that you get after a purchase, which is why those numbers are so unrealistic. Let's put it that way. So, and kind of what's left is really a few products and the odd category page, and because we know that most people come in at the category pages, and that the tracking's there, the tracking's not quite right. This isn't really a fair reflection of probably what's going on. So let's move on. Oops. So at this point, like understanding that we can't join up all of these dots in a really neat way at this point, it's often quite good to start looking at the queries that have fallen for a particular. And if we look at what we've done here is isolated terms where there's been no negative position or a click-through rate change. So if impressions are falling for these, but rankings have stayed the same and click-through rates have either stayed the same or improved, it does imply that there's possible demand going, some issues with demand here. The term that we're going to focus on is chicken coops. It's a reasonable question to ask, why not chicken house, as it's the term that's seen the biggest fall in impressions. But if we look at the SERP results for that, we can see that there's a result there for Chicken House Books, which incidentally is the publisher of Molly's book. So Molly's our marketing manager. Her book came out this year, and everybody should read it. And it's published by Chicken House Books, which I think is an amazing coincidence. But there we are. So I think for the purpose of this, it makes more sense to focus on this kind of chicken coops cluster or initial keyword. So let's go a bit deeper into that. Obviously, there's more than one keyword here. like we're using chicken coops as a kicking off point. But if we look at the kind of the other terms within that cluster, the demand is going up and down. So we kind of saw that broader brand, non-brand stuff being, 5.5% up. That's not all terms are up 4.5% or 5%. There's a huge amount of variation within that. So looking at the losers and the winners here is quite an interesting thing. We can see that demand around automatic doors seems to have jumped, seems to have fallen off. Lights, automatic chicken coop door UK is another one where we've seen that kind of demand that falls in that automatic doors cluster. But then on the other hand, we've got terms where demand is improving. So chicken coops and runs and these kind of related terms are really interesting here. So there, we can see that demand in some cases is up by about a third year on year. We've got terms in there like large, walk-in. All of these are showing really good opportunities for how people are carrying out that journey to buy products like this. All of these really kind of hint at an opportunity to either optimize or create a new category to kind of address these. If the products are appropriate, reorganizing them to match the way that people search for these kind of things is a really strong opportunity here. And that comes back to this. We know that these kind of categories account for 60% of revenue. So while the data that we're seeing is making it hard to join all of the dots and see exactly where there's been a decline, it's we're seeing opportunities here to restructure, reorganize, and kind of take advantage of this probably through creating new categories or kind of reorganizing products. And this is something that, again, we know this approach works really, really well. So this is an example from a kind of very similar project. And what we've done here is, because we're tracking everything in the data warehouse, it's easy for us to kind of tag a URL if it's been optimized, so we can see what the impact is at URL level, and then also compare that to say search demand. And over the past 6 months, kind of rolling out this kind of category-led approach, we've seen in this instance year-on-year revenue increase for that kind of set of URLs by about just under 1,500%, which is a big increase. At the same time, that being tempered by that 23% drop in demand. So the kind of broader point that I think is worth making with all of this is that when we're trying to understand why revenue is falling, if we can't like join all of the gaps together and see that smoking gun, just by going through this process and understanding what's happening, it throws up opportunities where you might be recovering in an area that was previously lost, or you can be offsetting things by finding new opportunities. So that's that kind of point in a nutshell. At the same time, there are quite often SEO execution issues or things that need to be addressed. This is quite hard to read from this image, for which I apologize. But one of the kind of most common things that we see with an e-commerce, or particularly a multi-category and multi-brand retailer, particularly on Magento, where you've got more of those categories, is products and categories competing with each other in search. What we've done here is we've identified the most frequent landing page and the second most frequent landing page. In the example highlighted, we've got a product and a category page competing with each other, or they're sharing a certain amount of the impressions for a search term. Most rank trackers will be looking, if you're using a kind of typical rank tracker, it would be like reporting on one URL 1 month, and then if that changes, it would bring in a different one. But each time you make a search, there's a chance that a different URL will appear. And what we're looking at here is that kind of percentage difference. And this would be an example of a possible SEO issue as opposed to a demand or kind of more strategic thing. So I think, yeah, that is it in a nutshell. And at this point, it'd be great to bring Bridget and Sarkis on board to talk about category and collection pages and that kind of user journey throughout, and to kind of better understand what happens when someone's landing on your site through this kind of this point of entry. Cool.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks ever so much. I think that there's a couple of points there that were made, which were surprising to me when we first started talking about category pages versus product pages all those years back. A quick intro to myself. So I'm Bridget. I'm one of the directors at ITQ Digital. Like Sam, I've been wearing the e-commerce hat, working with small, mid-sized companies for many years. So the early 2000s. I think the first client we got was probably in 1999. So we have been helping companies for quite some time, and also working with Magento for a good part of that time, probably from about 2012. So we're going to be talking, that's Sarkis and myself, about category pages, obviously, and also product pages. As you will all be probably focused on, either you've seen a drop in demand, as Sam mentioned, or you're expecting it because we are heading into difficult times. It's obviously dependent on the sector that you're in, but we would all do well to start to plan to ensure that once the storm hits, so to speak, that we're squeezing every bit of revenue out of the traffic that we as store owners, you as store owners, pay significantly for. Either that's paid traffic, or whether it's organic traffic that Sam's been talking a lot about. It's costly, and so in order to ensure that you maximize revenues and stay ahead of the competition, we've put together a few slides just to tease out some really important points about these pages. So category pages are typically used by shoppers to help them to find what they're looking for. So they need to be informative. It's normally those shoppers a little bit further up the funnel. They're probably past the sort of general research phase, but they're trying to now sort of ascertain what products they should look at, and looking to understand which ones would meet their needs. And so key elements of a category page, and if you can see the little screenshot on the left here from the Hey experts, obviously filtering is important. Magento does this exceptionally well. It's an excellent way to filter and quickly access those products that you're looking for. So it's typically put on the left hand side. I would say that, if it's a price sensitive product that you're selling, then you need to be transparent about pricing, and that probably would be higher up the page in terms of the filtering on the left hand side. I would also include featured products, new products, special products, also fairly high up the page on the category page. And you'll see on the example here, if you can see that give people a steer, get some appropriate messaging about which category of products they're in. So this one it's rabbit food. So moving on then to another example. So in specific detail around the products that you display on the category page, provide a quick view so that you can see the product really clearly from the category page. Show review stars for your products on the category pages. We often see them missing. They're on the product page, but not on the category page. Include FAQs for the products as well in that category, and make them relevant to that category. And I would say put those further down the page. Show if products are out of stock. It's nothing more frustrating than to click through from a category page to a product page and find that you can't purchase a product because it's out of stock. And if you can, bring in blog posts as well associated with that particular category page. So I'm just going to cover off just a couple of points around the product page. So once you've landed on the category page, you've selected a product, why would you focus on the product page? And Sakis is going to cover this off in more detail, but it is the place where people decide to buy. They may well buy off the category page, especially if it's a repeat purchase, but generally speaking, it's the product page where people need to get all of the information related to the product, and that they are provided with the opportunity to, without any distractions or friction, be able to buy that product. So over to you, Sakis.
Cool. Thanks, Bridget. Apologies you can't see my face. I work in technology, but I'm having issues with my camera today, and I don't want to start restart my laptop, so I can continue to speak to all of you. So I'm Sakis. I'm one of the founders at ITQ Digital. I look after more the technical side of things, and like Bridget said, product page is important, and I'm going to discuss what elements you need to be thinking about on your product page. So moving on to slide 28. So key elements of the product page. A lot of these may seem very, very obvious, but you'd be surprised how many online shop owners don't actually give enough focus to these elements on the product page. So price, obviously an important one, but it's about making sure that the price of your product is clear and concise on the page, and that if your product has different options and the price changes depending on those options, that is also clear and given to the user visiting your website, so there's no sort of miscommunication. Availability. So is it in stock? Is it out of stock? Again, a lot of websites don't show that information. They wait until the user adds it to their basket to tell them that it's out of stock. That will just annoy your customer, and they might look elsewhere. And then also about having clear call to actions. So, buy now, add to cart, making sure that the buttons are very clear and strategically placed on the product page so that it makes sense to the user journey. As well as that, you may have different bundles on your website. If you buy more than one, you make a saving. And sometimes that's not clear. It's only until the customer adds to cart and adds a quantity that you tell them about the saving they could make. Whereas if you display that type of information on page before they make a decision on the quantity, it might influence their decision quicker and take them through the checkout process a bit quicker. Slide 28. So product price. So again, it sounds really obvious, but it's such an important point, and a lot of websites don't pay attention to the price on the page. They often try to put it in a blocked color that they think it may stand out, but very often the best approach is just a sort of white on black or white on dark gray approach, where you can clearly see the price. You can see on the screenshot on the left hand side, you're clearly telling the customer what it is. You're clearly telling them if it includes VAT or doesn't include VAT. And you're also displaying the excluding VAT price as well. Very important to be clear about delivery. So in this example, it doesn't include delivery, but if your price includes delivery, or if they can shop up to a certain value to get free delivery, to make that very clear to them throughout the checkout process more than anything. In terms of the product, again, I'm repeating myself, but a lot of these things are not done on a lot of sites that we look at day in, day out. Making sure your images are consistent. So portrait, landscape, making sure those are consistent across the site, all the image sizes are the same. Just because you have a big, clear image doesn't mean it has to be a heavy file, which can hamper the performance of the page loading, etc. There's so many compression tools out there. There's WebP, which is a very recently new format of image format that can be adopted on websites to make sure the images are clear and concise, but don't take up a lot of space. Making sure you've got clear, consistent background colors. So I always say, let the product image do the talking. You don't need to have loads of coloring around it. Let the image color be the color, if that makes sense, and focus the rest of the page with a lot of whites and tone down colors so it doesn't hurt the customer's eye. Zoom feature, make sure there's a zoom feature. Loads of customers want to get up close and personal and see as much detail of the product as they can before actually purchasing it. And again, just the background color, making sure it's consistent. White or light grays are always a very good color to have as the background image, because it brings everything else to the forefront, and makes it easy for your customers to segment the different elements of the product page. Product videos, I think, are a must. Very often, a lot of companies won't do the videos because they think it takes too much work, but there's so many different tools out there to allow you to create videos in-house yourself. You just need good content to be able to do that, and it makes it a lot more interactive, and gives the customer a better sense of how your product is gonna solve a problem in their life. Descriptions, specifications, and ratings. So the worst thing you can do is copy and paste the same text on all your product pages and just change a bit of language within it based on the fact that you think that will give it a unique proposition. As Sam was saying earlier, it's becoming such a competitive market at the moment, and there's a lot of outside influences that are making it all quite a difficult climate for all of us. So you need to have elements on your website that separate you from the rest. And talking about things like free delivery or buy now, pay later, everyone can do that. It doesn't make you special. It doesn't make you unique at all. So it's all about ensuring that the description on your product pages are well thought about, well written, and will resonate with your ideal customer. So when you read it, when your customer reads it, it's going to resonate with them, and they're going to go, oh, okay, I can understand why I should buy this product, or I can understand why this product might solve an issue in my life. And that's going to build loyalty, number one. Number two, it'll probably get them to buy your product there and then the loyalty aspect will come after, where they'll probably either tell their friends and family about it, or if it's the type of product that you buy regularly, will always come back to you and purchase it again. So, you can use bullet points, you can use key phrases, you can use loads of different styling and setup options on various e-commerce platforms, especially Magento, to get those points across and get them across in the right way. And reviews are a must. Not just having a Trustpilot logo or a FIFO logo, and then maybe a little snippet on your home page with 3 or 4 different reviews that are all 5-star, obviously, because you've strategically placed those on the site. You need to get deeper into that, and you need to have reviews by category page, where you can have the 4 or the 5 stars against products specifically, but then most importantly on your product page. So not, oh, this company was amazing, they shipped my product to me in 2 days. Yeah, well, you're the same as everyone else. Again, it doesn't make you unique. It's about product specific reviews on the product pages, telling customers why that specific product is great and why they should buy it. And that will only help build trust and build confidence, and again, build that loyalty, which is really what you want. Next slide. Again, I won't go over these in too much detail because some of them are obvious, and you probably get what I'm trying to say. Availability. If you have a product, show if it's in stock or out of stock. Don't wait for the customer to press a button and tell them it's out of stock. If you have product options, like you can see on the left-hand side, it clearly shows which options are in stock and which options are out of stock, so the customer knows what they're dealing with before they click any buttons. And we've recently done it on another site that we've launched very recently, where you can suggest alternative products. That's not on the screenshot that I'm showing you, but just talking around that, where if a product is out of stock, it'll actually show them that on the category page. They click show me alternative products. They click on that button and it shows them a category of products that are alternative to the one they were thinking about. Again, giving them another option and not just telling them it's out of stock and you'll email them when it's back in stock. Do something about it. Try and be a bit more proactive. Buy the product. So clear buttons, add to basket, buy now. You can also do quick view buttons on the category page, which will either create a pop-up and show them the options of the product to add to the basket there and then, or if there are no product options, give them the option to add to basket on the category page again. So you're creating at every step of the user journey the option for the customer to add the product to basket in as little clicks as possible, i.e. making it convenient for them, which is what you should be thinking about. So just looking at a real store example, this one on the left hand side, you can see has got all the clear signs of price. Is it available? You can see 40 in stock. Maybe the image on the screen is a bit small, but I can show you on a live site. You can see how many are in stock or if it's out of stock, and then a clear call to action around adding to basket. That reviews button, if you click on that, it would take you down to the bottom of the page and show you product specific reviews, basically. Slide 35, which is the final slide I'll be talking about before I pass you over to Bridget, about the checkout page. So there's obviously different ways that you can do a checkout page. On Magento, you can do this 1, 2, 3, where it clearly shows you the steps of the user journey that you're at within the checkout. A lot of people like that. But there's also the one-page checkout, which you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, where it clearly shows you your shipping address, your billing address, your shipping methods, and the different payment options available. So it clearly gives all the different segments of the checkout process to your customer. They know what they're doing. They know what they have to fill out. They know what they need to choose. And it makes the whole process a lot slicker and more efficient. Also important to have on the checkout page is the upsell. So, if you order £20 more, you can get free delivery. That should be put throughout the basket and the checkout process, not just the checkout process, which is what we always recommend our customers. And then the discount code, making sure the discount code is present across all areas of the website. So basket, checkout, if it's there and it's not expanded, it can make your customer feel like you're trying to hide it and not give them the option to use it easily. So you need to make sure that's very clear. And then again, going back to the checkout process, you can have the one-step checkout, or you can have a checkout where you have a progress bar. To be honest with you, I'm not going to say that one is better than the other. I think it really depends on your business, the type of customer you have, and the type of product you're selling. If your product is something that you don't really need to think about, then maybe the one-step checkout is a good one, because people need to check out as quickly as possible. If it's one where you have various options and there's a bit more thought process going into buying your product, then maybe you want to do the 1, 2, 3 approach, because then it sort of goes in line with the customer's decision making. They're not going to do it quickly, so therefore they don't want to rush the checkout either, but they still want to know where they are, i.e. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 sort of thing. So hope you found that very useful. I'll pass you back to Bridget now. She's going to talk about a couple of other things.
That's great. Thank you, Sarkis. Hopefully for a lot of you here, there was a lot of things there that you knew already, maybe some reminders there as to things you should go back and check on your store to make sure that over time there hasn't been some slippage in some of these key user journey pointers that we've flagged up. Sarkis is absolutely forensic. I can give him any site and he will definitely find friction points where perhaps somebody else might not do that. So it's worthwhile doing that exercise again ahead of the busy season. There's a couple of other considerations just wanted to talk about. So I think it's important on all pages to reinforce your brand propositions and also your brand, because Sam talked about traffic, brand related traffic, and once people are kind of familiar with your brand, then when they arrive on the site, then they need to have those values and the value propositions reinforced, and so they're constantly reminded of what you stand for. And so we look to incorporate these value propositions on all pages using some very, very clear icons, and they need to be unique to your business and unique to your offering. And so I stress that. Use blog articles to help with on-page SEO. Of course, that is a big plus for using blog articles, but it's also really, really good for the shopper to be able to read about the products that you offer, the in-use stories, to see images and so on. And then finally, really, mobile responsiveness is key. It goes without saying, these days we design with mobile first in mind. Most people are starting and probably almost certainly finishing their purchasing experience on the mobile. And so checking out the positioning of all of these key elements on the product page, on the category pages, on all pages, making sure that they render properly and you get the important parts of the page appearing within the mobile view correctly. So what are the key takeaways? I think you can decommoditize your product or be special in the market, no matter how, if you like, commodity orientated your product is, by the way that you present your product. So, you know, it's a difference between an own label bar of chocolate versus a Nestle bar of chocolate. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to put a wrapper on that identifies you as being standing out from the crowd. So sell the specific benefits and the specific problems that you solve. Use simple messaging on the site, and focus, as we said, on the product page, the category pages, and also the checkout. And going back to what Sam was saying just earlier on, if your data is bad, you're going to find it really, really difficult to understand what's going on if you do see a drop in traffic, and where to actually focus your efforts, whether it's focusing efforts on improving organic ranking, or whether it's having to focus your efforts in some other place. You need to get the tracking sorted. So I think we're now ready to do some Q&A, and if anybody's got any questions, we're very, very happy to answer those between us. So if you'd like to share those with us in the chat, that would be great.
I think we've got one from Lauren, which is probably one for Sam, I think, to talk around. So what would you say are the top telltale signs of tracking issues in Google Analytics? Have we got Sam online, Bridget? Can you see Sam?
I'm not seeing Sam popping
No.
on at the moment.
Sorry.
There we go.
Sorry. I was talking away to myself and realized that I hadn't clicked the button. So that's not particularly helpful, is it? I was just saying, as you didn't hear, that probably we've seen a couple of examples of those in the slides that we've just been through, in organic revenue being attributed to checkout pages, to cart pages. That's a really big one. Large amounts of revenue being assigned to direct none. That's also often a sign that some things are amiss. I mean, there is quite a few. A disproportionately high amount of direct traffic. Also, I mean, one of the kind of first points that we try and look at when we're trying to understand if tracking is out as well is there a lot of revenue traffic going to collection pages, but it's not converting? I mean, obviously that can also be a conversion issue, but it is a kind of good kicking off point. If you've got traffic that looks like the right intent going to the pages where we should be seeing some conversion, but it's not being assigned to that channel, and it might be going to direct, for example, then that's normally a kind of point of investigation. High amounts of referral in revenue, in the revenue channel. I mean, you may see payment gateways in there. That's always that's quite a common one. Things like PayPal or Shopify's own like payment gateways. You know, so there's quite a few, and it's quite a big subject. All in all, is what I'd say there. So we've got someone else typing here. If a site has a low number of SKUs and therefore product pages, less than 15, does it still need product filters? I mean, that's
a good one for you, Sarkis, I think.
Yeah, I can take that one, Joe. I think it really depends on the type of product and the different options, because it's, again, going back to what I was saying, it's all about giving your customer the quickest route to adding a product to basket. So, for example, if you have 15 products, but for every single product there is different colors, finishes, sizes, bolt-ons, there's a whole host of different options. For example, if the 15 products have got 100 different options between them, between color, material, size, I'm just making these up, by the way, then you'd want to give a filtering system on the left-hand side of your category page to allow your customer to know which of the 15 products are in black, or which of the 15 products are in green, or which come in large or extra large or small. And you can do that by placing the different product options on the category page so it's visible to them which ones very quickly they need to be searching and looking for. Again, it really depends on the type of products you've got. It would require a 30-minute workshop to look across all your 15 products, see what they're made up of, how they operate, what type of products they are as well, to give you the best advice. It's really down to the specific product and what type of business you've got.
I mean, I'd probably just dive in there, Sarkis, and say that we're kind of varying in faceted navigation territory here as well. Can these products be rearranged, or does this approach warrant a faceted navigation? Which is, we've talked a lot about category pages so far. An SEO-friendly faceted navigation, which is essentially a set of sub-filters down the left-hand page side, is a great way of kind of building out those variations. But you're right, like, say, if there's less than 15, like, does it warrant being reorganized into something like that? And a lot of that comes down to, is there demand for it? Which you can see from your Search Console data. Are people searching for those, for those kind of things? Is there search volume for those kind of product combinations, which would lead you down that route?
That's exactly right, Sam. So you'd look at the data to help you make the decision as to whether it warranted or not, and you'd also look at the type of product and the market that you're selling into to sort of make a balanced decision across it. So hope that answers your question, Joe.
Awesome. We've got one from AJ now, probably one for me. I would have thought. How do you deal with keywords or copy for products with slight variations? This is a really, really interesting one. We've talked a lot about essentially spinning out new categories based on, is there demand for it? So can we capture some traffic by creating a new category? But like products in particular, like product variants, I mean, this is something that comes up all the time on Shopify. We have, do we index variants is quite a common question. And again, it comes down to demand. So one of the first things we would look at, so imagine that we've got a product which is, oh man, I'm really bad at coming up with these examples. So it's a hat. So we've got a hat, and the variations are a green hat, black hat, blue hat. And that's essentially the only difference between it. So the product is, so the variation is green, blue hat, black hat, whatever. First thing to do here is to understand about whether people search for those colors. You can look in your Search Console data. And again, really, this is something where you want to be using an API connection rather than just using the web app, because you're limited on the amount of data that you can pull out through the web app. Whereas using an API connection, or you can extract much more. And when you're trying to go down into the granular level of this kind of thing, having more data there is incredibly useful. So at that point, okay, we can see maybe you're triggering some impressions for it. Have a look and see, is there search demand? Is there any search volume for these kind of variants? Zero, quite often Keyword Planner or any of these other kind of data sources for keyword volume will show zero for very, very specific terms. And this might be something you're aware of already, but that doesn't translate to what happens in real life. This is something that we're looking at in our data warehouse as well, comparing like how many terms get impressions but have zero volume. And it's actually quite a high percentage. Anyway, yeah, that's a kind of like a bit of a detour there. Search volume for the product would be number one. Has it triggered any impressions? And then, because obviously we're relying on imperfect data here. I would also say, just if you know, from your understanding of your audience, do you think people are kind of searching in these terms? And if any of these boxes are ticked, I would probably justify creating a variant that's indexable and then trying to add as much unique copy onto that page as possible. So for the green hat, it's not just a case of having green and black as interchangeable words. We'd be wanting to add product reviews where appropriate, specific to the variant or to the product. And then, yeah, any other content you can get on there to differentiate it. So it's not seen as a page that's too close. But the thing is, yeah, like trying to understand whether there's demand for it, approach it like an index. If you think there is, approach it as an indexable page. Try and try and get as much copy on there as possible to differentiate the two. And then we would say, once they're up, monitor them and see, is there, you know, are you seeing these pages rank for like the variant, or these kind of tightly related pages ranking for kind of each other's terms, and at that point, yeah, kind of revise, add more copy if necessary, etc. I hope that answers the question. Cool.
Do we have any other questions from anybody?
So another one here on tracking and attribution. Like, attribution is a horrible subject for e-commerce, and it's one that, like, we've looked at in huge amounts of detail over the past year or two. It's a massive subject in itself. Attribution is not something that can easily be solved. There's a lot of businesses products out there that are trying to do so and aren't doing a good job, essentially. But for Magento, I would probably always say here that it's entirely possible to do all of this stuff just with standard GA and like a well set up Google Analytics account, a well configured one. But you know, often that requires some customization on the data layer and other things. But you know, it's much better in a lot of instances to focus on just configuring your analytics properly. Relying on plugins is variable. We see all kinds of things where, you know, like just dropping it into a Magento plugin causes all kinds of problems. So really, I'd probably say there's not one thing that we would recommend here. It requires a bit of deep dive and often some manual configuration, but focusing on getting standard analytics working would be the kind of the normal way that we would go here. Cool. Got another question here. Looking at Magento's site last week and noticed that there was roughly an equal share of internal links throughout the site to product category blog posts. Is this an issue for SEO? I mean, possibly. It's always hard to say with these things, but really the way we want to be thinking about this is it clear to a search engine which pages are important and relevant to a particular subject? Internal linking is an important part of that. And if you've got a signal that is pretty much evenly spread across the board, it's going to make it more difficult. But then again, not all internal links are treated equally. Like navigation links and content links are kind of treated differently in some ways. So, but yeah, in essence, having a very, very flat linking structure across everything can make it very, very difficult for a search engine to understand which pages are which. Cool. Well, we're coming up to the.
I think we've got 5 minutes, haven't we, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's any other questions, I've just noticed that someone's at the door. Amazing timing on this. Might need to bear with me one moment. 1 second.
So has anybody got a last question that's burning that you'd like to ask either of us, Sam, myself, or Sarkis, about Magento?
Not embarrassing at all.
I think the questions are dried up, Sam.
Yeah, if that's the case, it'd be great to just wrap up.
Just
here.
wrap up.
We've managed to do it all in time, which is a first, I think. But thank you, everybody. Great to have you on board, and thanks for attending, and thanks Bridget and Sarkis, and also Molly and Devon for helping organise everything on this. Really appreciate it.
Indeed, I'll just finish off by saying that if you feel inclined and you'd like to get some free input on your particular situation with the Magento store, whether the traffic is increasing or decreasing, Sam, myself, and Sarkis are available for free clinics. We're happy to hold those. We generally sort of run them over a 45 minutes session online. We get into some detail with you, give you some free advice on the call, and we do a little report afterwards. And then it's up to you as to where you take it from there. We'd be happy to do that, and you can book those clinics online. Brilliant. So again, thank you from all of us for joining.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.